Hi, Art Seekers. We are here in New York with TAKI 183. I could not be more excited to get to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great. We got like the best day of the year so far.
Yeah, it's perfect. So tell me, how did you start working as a graffiti writer? You started it all, so what inspired you to start yourself?
You know, I was with my friends up by the bus terminal and they were writing, and it was a really smooth wall, and I said, let me get some of that, and it just took off from there. My other friends were writing their names, other guys were writing the year, like 69, and I just went with the street, because if there was another Taki, he probably wasn't going to be on 183rd Street.
That's true.
So.
Well, I love that because energetically, graffiti to me seems to be very local. That typically taggers will tag or just have this community that is surrounding where they live. And so you really started that by announcing, this is my spot, this is my community.
I just carried the 183 around the city, which I guess inspired other people. Because in Brooklyn, they didn't have really street numbers, so people would get more stylish or they'd write something else. But a lot of the number graffiti is from Manhattan or the Bronx. We were doing it because we knew who we were, but nobody else knew who you were. So you'd be hanging around with people and they'd say, oh, these guys, they're writing everywhere. Who are these guys? And you'd be the guy and they're talking about you. So that was the big thing at the time. I don't think it could happen again, because now, like you write Lizzie and you put it on Instagram and it's like all over the city or the world. But in those days, it was like really a street level thing where you'd write and a guy from the Lower East Side would see that, like maybe Lee, and he'd say, oh, I think I'm going to write Lee. And it was really a crawling kind of movement. There was no internet or anything.
Right.
But it was known like really far and wide, which is what the cool thing is, without really any advertising, until the media picked it up, and then people saw it on TV or in the paper, and it was a big mystique movement. There was no real law against it. They didn't know what to do with it. So if you really got caught, they'd let you go. It's not like now where guys come from Europe and they write on the train and they get arrested. So it's pretty big deal now not to get caught.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And did that change, though, in the 80s with Koch and Reagan? Because then there was more of a system in place for cracking down when people
I think they had
taggers.
like graffiti squads and all this, but by then I was out of it. So it was like the next guys to get away with it.
What was your process? Did you typically go out by yourself at night or with some friends?
Well, when we were with my friends, we'd be writing everywhere, but we weren't like brazen like guys later. They'd go in a crowded subway car and just start writing in front of everybody. It was like, what's the point? It's like the difference between stealing a car and carjacking. Anybody can pull out a gun and take a car, but if you can go steal it and nobody knows who stole it, he's the cooler guy.
There's more finesse to that.
Yeah, there's more finesse, and I like to hit and run, basically.
How many tags do you think you did?
Oh, I don't know, but I wore out a lot of markers. I mean, on a good day, I was probably writing like 50 tags downtown.
Oh my God.
Because, I used to be a messenger, so I would just write everywhere. And I had my jacket with the hole in the pocket, so I could write in the subway, like a stealth kind of thing.
That's genius.
Yeah, well, everybody had holes in their pockets in those days.
Why did you decide to transition away from tagging?
I just didn't get around as much anymore. I was out of the subways, and, I never got into going into the yards and doing stuff at night because I wasn't going to do a big masterpiece. I made my point. What else could you do?
How has New York changed since those days in the early 70s?
I think it's a lot safer now, to walk around. Like there's some neighborhoods most people wouldn't write in unless you were from the neighborhood, because you just wouldn't go there. Because I remember because I went to school down in the city, so there was a lot of guys from all over, and I had written on 125th Street somewhere back in the day, and the guy says, "Man, you wrote your name over there? It's like really bad around there." I said, "Hey, you know." So now you can pretty much go anywhere, you know, at least in the daytime. And now, you know, you got the cameras too, you got to watch out.
Right. But also your own camera it kind of functions as your archive. But like you were saying at the time, there wasn't that social media. There wasn't really a way to capture your image and disseminate it to the world. And so you really had to walk to see it. And it's more of a process of discovery. Yeah. It's like a scavenger hunt a little bit. Where was Taki last night? Well,
what would happen is you would write on a blank place, and the next guy would come and write next to you because it was a spot. So there's some pictures that you can see in, you know, the old books, like everybody's name is at a certain place because it would be a big crossroads, like where you change from the A train to the number 1. Everybody would be going through that spot, and they just naturally write there. So it's like a layered experience. You all didn't go together and tag it at the same time.
No, usually and someone else came.
Yeah, usually if you want to see the layers, is you look at the smaller ones at the most accessible spots. And as it got filled up, guys would have to stretch out, or they'd have to write bigger, but most guys wouldn't overwrite anybody.
And if there was an overarching message that you hope to either communicate in your work or communicate to other artists, what would it be?
Well, if you're doing it illegally, don't get caught. That's the main thing. And have fun. I mean, you know, do it for fun.